You're listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality, where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio.
So hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Changing Reality. To all our returning audience, thank you so much for tuning into each and every single one of these episodes. We appreciate all of you. And to our amazing listeners who are tuning in for the first time, where have you been all this while? Don't you know, this is the place to be? But anyway, Changing Reality is a show for all you new people out there that focuses on brilliant stories about how individuals are essentially changing their own reality. And through this show, we have the opportunity to speak to social entrepreneurs, change makers, artists, musicians, industry experts, thought leaders, everyone and anyone that you can think of who is essentially shaping the way that we see the world today and shaping their own paths as well. And the idea is that through this show, hopefully we'll be able to pick up little nuggets of wisdom that will shorten our own learning curves and give us a little clarity on what it is we want to do and how we can get there. It's all about the power of stories here. And stories is something that has personally been a driving force in my life that's changed the way I've looked at things. And I think that it will be similar, the same platform for you to do the same. So a little bit about me. My name is My name is Harsha and I am your host of Changing Reality. I am the CEO and co-founder of Ascendance, an international social enterprise that works with over 50,000 students across 26 countries to bring alternate education platforms to everyday students. So we help every student discover what it is they love doing, go out there and get hands-on experiences, and eventually start their own social enterprises or careers while they're still in school. And we've been fortunate today to help countless number of students from as young as 8 to 25 years old be able to start their own careers, creating social entrepreneurs, creating artists, and creating individuals from making change out there as well. And a big part of how and why we've been able to do that has been stories. It's been kind individuals who've taken time out of their busy schedules to share with us what worked, what didn't work, and what is all the story in between. So today we have another phenomenal guest with us. We have Raphael Mayer, all the way from Brazil.
From Brazil,
right?
Yeah, far away.
Very far away. He is also someone who is incredibly successful as a social entrepreneur. He is the founder of Simbi. And I will try to do justice to what they say, but I'll let you do it a lot better. But essentially the way I think about it is they are like a stock exchange for impact. They work with some of the best the biggest companies and funders which want to do social good. And at the same time, they ensure that they have the data, the information about what is actually happening on the ground with the nonprofits, with the social enterprises, what causes are people passionate about. And they make sure that this information meets the right people so that the change that is a little bit of magic can happen in these communities as well. He is a Forbes 30 Under 30 awardee in the year 2021. In 2018, he was recognized as Social Entrepreneur of the Year in Brazil, and he has a long list of many other brilliant achievements. So I'll not go into detail, I'll leave some suspense for you. But Raphael, how are you today?
First, thank for the invitation to being part of this. It's always a pleasure to meet some great entrepreneurs as you, Harsha, and also to have the opportunity to be closer to Ascendance and also to be inspired here. And to share a little bit of our story. I think it's a lot of stamps. We are not these stamps. We're just normal people trying to do our best, trying to change the world and the possibilities that we have.
Well, you are very, very kind. And we're streaming live from Malaysia. So I'm here because I live here and it's summer and it's a nice time to be home.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? What part of the grand plan of this of yours has brought you here in a sense?
Perfect. So actually I'm here for a personal adventure as well. So I'm running my company from 7 years now. I started with 22 years old. I'm 29 years old now. And after a while, you just get so overwhelmed with everything, even with the things going right. Sometimes the people think that it's overwhelming when the things go bad, but
there's a whole other set of challenges.
Yeah, when the things work, also it's really overwhelming and it's a lot of work. And I was starting to get worried because after 7 years doing working a lot and I was seeing myself inside of a box as well. And that was always what we were trying to run off. like being outside of the box, thinking different, trying to do the things differently. But after a while, you just get inside your own routine. And I put myself a challenge, and I decided that I was going to be abroad to get inspired, to connect, and to understand how could we make our company, Simbi, also go abroad and learn from others, and also teach and share knowledge. And this part where I decided that I put in my head that I wanted to do an MBA. Mm-hmm. However, with some calls and some recommendations and guidance, we do have a board member in Brazil, that is Edgar Barque. He's one of the main professors that teach social entrepreneurs, and also he runs an MBA in one of the biggest universities in Brazil. And he recommend me in the opposite way. I was saying to him like, "Oh, I want to do this MBA," and he was like, "Oh, are you sure? Are you sure that you really want to do this MBA? Because maybe you're going to be inside a classroom in an academic perspective, and you're going to learn some things that you're already learning. So why don't you think about like writing down your own MBA?" And I thought, okay, this is different. This is challenging. Why not? So it's kind of become an entrepreneur vibe, because I'm entrepreneuring like my own. You
entrepreneured your own MBA. Okay, that's next level entrepreneurship. Okay.
So we started to write it down, like which are the main foundation institutes, companies, social business, big corporations all over the world that has connections with what we are doing in Brazil, technologically speaking, by the same purpose, by the same mindset, or mainly different companies to see the difference. And so we put together this plan in an 8-month travel. So it's 3 months in Europe, 2 months in Asia, 3 months in the United States. I'm in the middle of this whole experience, so it's a lot of countries already, been a lot of knowledge, a lot of learnings of being here, a lot of learnings of not being in Brazil and still running by far the company. So yes, that's what I'm doing here. A lot of experience, a lot of things happening.
So you've been in many countries in the last 3 months alone, right?
Yes.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot here. We're gonna do a little rapid fire.
Okay.
And I'm gonna ask you like a few things, and just tell me the first country that comes to mind that you've been to in the last 3 months.
Okay.
Rules: you can't say Brazil, you can't say Malaysia. Only the places you've seen
the different ones.
on the MBA journey. All right, ready?
Yes.
Shall we? Okay. Let's see. Best weather.
Barcelona, Spain.
Ooh, okay, very interesting. Best people.
Thailand.
Ooh, best food.
Italy.
That's why I removed Malaysia. I'm like, it's too conflict of interest with that one. Best social impact infrastructure.
England.
Ooh, best business world, like community.
Oh, that's a challenging one. That's. I will go for England too.
I've heard that quite a bit. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm very curious in a sense. Happiest company employees.
Happiest companies employees. Okay, the ones that I've been through. Thailand. I will go to Thailand. Yeah.
All right. Best work-life balance.
Spain.
Ooh, okay. Most fun out of work experience.
Oh, so many out of work experience.
Not that he had trouble.
Malaysia.
Wow. Okay, very exciting. But no, I definitely think, it's a beautiful way of looking at learning. It's, we always say the sentence, and that's how we think learning should be. But we work with students, we work with, kids in a sense, and we try to supplement that. You just recreated the whole world after the whole MBA world. Because it's true that a lot of people that I speak to on this show often say that, they wish they could go back to school now after they've had like 6-7 years of experience running something, because they weren't paying attention in school. Nobody really was like, thinking, oh, how am I going to do that? But then as you run a business, as you kind of get involved in the world, you realize that there are gaps in your knowledge, but there's so much more to learn in a sense. But I think the approach you've taken is very enriching from what I heard, really fun. And I definitely think you've learned a lot from it. What do you think has been the biggest takeaway you've had so far, mid-journey check-in?
Okay, so I think like when we are talking about developing ourselves or getting learnings and try to improve in something, we are also talking about developing our own being, So I think like when we travel, when we get in touch with other culture, when we get in touch with different people, you're just like also feeding your soul, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a life MBA as well. It's like how to live, how to balance.
It's a live NM.
Yeah, exactly. So how can you get this amount of knowledge, get this amount of experience at the end of the day, and put part of yourself? When we put this into learnings, I would like to say that have these two big boxes of learnings. The learnings that I'm having of being in new places, meeting new people, doing the network, or knowing new business model, of new way of dealing with the economy, with the employees, with everything, but also have whole boxes of learnings of not being into the day-to-day life of the company, of not being in Brazil running the business. And these kind of learnings for me it's the most surprising one, because I was not expecting that. I was all about like putting my attention over what I was going to see, who I'm going to be with, and which company and which institute foundation. However, have the whole learning of being abroad. And also this means delegates, this means trust, this means to end up, and I think that like I learned it maybe in the hardest way, that I became the main bottleneck of my own company. And I think that this is quite normal, because we start our business, it's like our son, it's like part of us, it's like we love,
we joke that our kid's old enough to go to primary school now at 8, you know.
Exactly, and we give all of us for it. And after a while, like I was just thinking that I was helping everyone. So I go to talk with the client. I was going to help the people how to manage things and how to make decisions. And I was becoming the main bottleneck of the whole process. So I think that has this amount of learning that it's fundamental for growth. It's fundamental to get scale up, to put our business into the scale that we wish and that we believe that we can make the whole difference in the world. I think that these are the main learnings now. Delegate, trust, create governance to deal with it into the proper way.
This is very, very important. And of course, I want to go into your whole superhero origin story in a minute. But, you know, it's so important because, you know, someone told me this when I first started, like, a sentence, like, 8 years ago now. And they said something like, the true mark of success as an entrepreneur is when your business can run not only without you, but it runs better when you're not there, in a sense. Yes. And I used to think, what great advice. And then now, in the middle of it, I think, you know, I've kind of realized that it's easy to say, but very hard to do, in a sense, because you want to be involved, you want to do everything. And the thing that I realized, you know, in my own journey of trying to step, not even out, but step aside sometimes, you know, is that oftentimes we really, that belief that we really are the thing that's keeping the lights on is so central in a sense, because we are there, as you said, in the moment, talking to the students, in my case, or talking to people, that, you know, until I step out of it, I didn't realize how, I wouldn't say unimportant, but how many of the things that I was doing was not important, and I could be investing in learning and trying new things and really growing it in a way that, you know, wouldn't traditionally be there, and micromanaging and seeing everything. That's a very hard realization. I'm suffering from the pain of it right now, and you know, what can you tell me to ease the ache in my heart and soul and make me feel a little bit better? How did you do it? How did you go through the emotions of it?
Yes, I think like, if I would say like, sometimes the knowledge of it doesn't make you feel less, but make you understand what you're feeling. And this make a lot of difference when you understand what you're feeling. And I think that the knowledge of it make the whole difference to becoming a controller person inside the company, or to step ahead and say like, I know that it's going to be uncomfortable. I know that it's, sometimes you have this, you know, you're in the meeting, you're listening to someone saying something that is not necessarily your belief of the right way. But even if it's not, it's so important to leave the things going so the people can learn and we can understand and build this collective way of managing everything. So I would say that like it's the main point, like of understanding why you're feeling and what, and sometimes it's impressive. Like I was thinking, like I needed to be 16,000 miles away from my country to realize that the company will keep going and we are growing. We're getting more clients than ever. We're getting and everything is running and it's okay, you know, and should be something obvious, you know, something natural of delegate and everything, but it is not, and it's not easy, and it's not easy to just.
Well, as I said, true mark of a successful entrepreneur, the business grows and has taken a life of its own when you're there physically, when you're there or not. So kudos to you.
And also has a learning of understanding that maybe you're not the right person to be doing everything. I think that's also really tricky because sometimes you have the creator energy, you know?
You're like, I did everything the best because I was the only one there. And yeah.
No, but even like sometimes you have like the manager skill that is not the same skill of the creation skill. So I read this article in Stanford, like they have this theory, the exploit and exploiters. So it's the difference of how to you deal with the business, with the mindset and the way. And to understand sometimes that your skill or your characteristic is not the main characteristic that the company needs at that moment, sometimes it's also hard. To say like maybe someone can do better than me working in this process and dealing with this specific moment of the company.
Yeah, right. It is a very hard hit, but but I understand that feeling of at least being like, I like the way I looked at it is someone said you may be a good early stage founder, but maybe at the mid stage you need to bring in people who know how to run a mid stage company. You can learn it if you want to learn it. You can take that energy in a different aspect of the business, but you have to know where your strengths lie and who you are really. Talking about who you are, you know, I think I always say that I was very lucky that I started young in my journey in a sense, because it gave me kind of the best education of being an entrepreneur is actually being an entrepreneur. You also have a very interesting story of starting young. We were just talking earlier and you were telling me about how you sold pencils and chocolates and everything in school. What was your first, experience of entrepreneurship?
I think that was at least the one that I remember. You know, like the
you could have been 4 and selling little toy cars.
Yeah, no, but I think that was when I was 7 years old. Actually, it was the first time that I just had this click. I started to understand myself maybe through an entrepreneur experience. So at the point I was having like a lot of issue in my house. Like I was not actually fitting in the school. My parents were having a divorce at that point, so a really challenging moment for a 7-year-old kid.
It's a lot for 7
to deal with everything. So I was really trying to understand myself, and it was a really funny way that this happens, because I was not really paying attention a lot in the class with everything happening. I was like
you were a little bit distracted.
Yeah, I was in the back part of the classroom. And I just received this present. There was a lot of pencils, and then I started drawing on the pencils. So I started to draw all of them. And they start kind of beautiful. And then I had a friend of mine saying like, "Oh, I want this pencil." I gave to him, and the other one I also want. And the other one saying like, "I want that one." And had 2 of them. They want the same pencil. They said like, "I can pay it for it." I was like, "Okay, you can pay it." I never had the money for go to the canteen and to have the sodas and so I said like, "Okay, nice." So I start selling pencils in the school with 7 years old, and I discover a passion there. A passion of talking with people, a passion of selling, a passion, and it's, after a while, it was not even about the money, because like, 7 years old, it's not about the money.
Yeah, it's like you're not exactly saving up for a Ferrari.
Yeah, we're just about the feeling of doing something nice and giving for the people. And I have like some cousins that start like, "Oh, can I work with you?" And one draw the pencil, other sell it, other manage the money. So we were selling after a while for 3 different schools the pencils.
Oh wow, a little syndicate of pencils. Okay, you really went all out with that. Okay.
So yeah. So it was a really nice experience. And at that point I knew that I would love to run something that was mine. I would love to have this experience. But life made a bit difference for a while, and then after we connected together again.
someone once asked me this question, and it was, do you think you'd be able to take the skills that you have, like running the social organization, and do it with any organization, even if they didn't have that social cause? This was a question someone asked me. And the question for me was, no, I'm very useless. I would not be able to do that. No, I'm not even joking in a sense. All my skills came because I love the cause. I really believe in it. So I kind of forced myself to build the skills to be the entrepreneur. You're a little bit different. You had the entrepreneurial skills. You could have had a choice to do full-on profit, get the thing done. You could have very easily. You naturally had that skill for sales, for entrepreneurship. Why choose to be a social entrepreneur?
It's because I think like selling, it's first about believing and connecting. When you connect and you believe something, you can have the skill also to show what you believe, and I think that this becomes much more powerful. My mom used to say that I can sell everything. Raphael, I can sell everything. You can do, if I get, she started to get worried because she thought I was selling her or something. So like selling the things in the house. Like I used to love to do this. But after a while, like I went to university, I went to a business school, and I started working into a huge company in the selling area. And after a while, like it just gets something that is missing, this feeling of something missing. And I had this experience of helping my cousin into a social cause. It was the first time that I was selling something that I knew that I was good on it. And I was selling something that was bigger than me, bigger than a product, bigger than a pencil, bigger than something physical, or I was helping her to sell her idea, her main social cause. She was working with clowns into hospitals, helping kids, and her goal was to go to a public hospital and do this work. And for the first time, I helped her, and we get the money for the cause. And seeing those kids being able to receive their treatment or make it the day easier. It's not a treatment, but it makes treat the soul, treat the who you are. So making them being possible to have this access by a characteristic that I have, by a skill that you have, made so much difference. So then I just shift my mindset and say like, okay, sometimes when we can talk, when we can sell something, it's a gift. It's something that you have, and with a gift comes also responsibility. So I think that was the main mindset. What was my responsibility over the good things that I could have access, the good people that I could have access, the qualities that I could do it. So how could I deal with all this package of privileges that I had, and deal in the same proportion with the responsibility that this package comes with. So changing this mindset was really important to me. So of course I could be working in a big company, I could be working in something else, but at the end of the day will not fulfill, because at the end of the day it's not about money. And even it's not true that we are separating the things, because most of the people think that or you work with some big companies, some things that are destroying the planet, and then you receive money for it.
Yeah.
Or you do something that
it's
is
A or B.
Yeah. Or are you gonna work with an NGO, help the world, solve the world?
Are you gonna be rich and evil,
and
or like poor and good?
You're just like living the idea of traveling, having a wealth life. Like it's not true. It's not true at all, and we have to change this mindset, because otherwise it's not possible. Because it's true, we do live in a world that it's important to travel, it's important to have nice things, it's important to get access to a dignity life. And if we do this doing the wrong things, why can we not do this doing the right things, doing things that are going to change the humanity, change the thing. So I think that was the main mindset, to prove also that was possible to earn money and do a social change all over the world, and work together with both things.
Many people, I think, they want to do good for the world.
Yeah.
Either they can't think of a way to do it and they go somewhere else completely and they get kind of meandered off the path. Or some of them, they really want to do something, but they really obsessed on kind of being the person who comes up with the most original idea, the most, the exciting idea out there in a sense. And I've met many people who, they get too obsessed with, this idea of the thing that they want to do. Like, it has to be, like, it has to have the best product market fit. It has to outcompete everyone. It has to be the most original in a sense that they spend so much time in the idea, they never look at anything else in a way. You have a brilliant idea for your social enterprise that solves a real problem at the root cause versus just treating the symptoms of it, like many firefighters, and which are important. We love firefighters; they literally put out fires. But yours is a bit more institutional in terms of it's trying to change the system of how things are done. How did that idea come to you, and how did you begin that process of implementing it out?
Sure. I think I started to try to change the world inside the big company. I didn't at the beginning thought of becoming an entrepreneur. Of course, this was in mind somehow, but I thought that the main way to change the world would be inside this big company that I was working at the time. It's a big multinational company, so I started to work with the social responsibility cause. And then I started to see a big difference between becoming an entrepreneur and an intra-entrepreneur. So you can be an entrepreneur inside a big company, but have two main differences. Intra-entrepreneur, you can have 99 no's, but if you have one, it's the opposite. So intra-entrepreneur, if you have 99 yes, you can do it, but you have one no, you cannot do anything because you're inside a big company. You have a structure. So if you have the whole levels, if you have one no, you cannot do it. To become an entrepreneur, it's the quite opposite. You can have 99 no's.
Yes.
But if you have one yes, you can make it possible to do something. Because you just have this one shot, this opportunity.
That's a very nice way to look at it.
So when I started to try to change this whole mindset inside a company, I started to see that it has a lot of challenges, cultural challenges, and also really lack of information, lack of tools for doing the things that I wanted to. And if I really wanted to go after it, I had to create my own solution and go after it. Which is really funny because at the beginning, my boss was like against. They were like saying like, "Oh, this is not gonna work," and then I ran after it. I quit my job and I start the company. And nowadays, my job is also a client, so we still work with this company.
So you must have been that good at it. You were like, "Oh man, we've got to reconsider our stance on this," in a sense.
So it was an interesting journey, but I think that mainly what we are working with is using data to increase the quality of the decision-making of social investments in big companies in Brazil, and now starting with other countries as well. So mainly what we do is cross public information. We started to realize that most of public data that were needed to a qualified decision-making was already inside the government. It was supposed to be public information and has a huge difference between public information and accessible information. So we started to work with thousands of crawlers, gathering all the public information of all NGOs in Brazil. So it was over 400,000 NGOs in Brazil that we tracked, and also all the social demands indexes all over the country. So we gather all this information and develop a tool that cross the social demand and the information offer of NGOs that could solve these problems and help big companies to make qualified decision-making process and do qualified investments at the end of the day. Mainly our platform helps them to decide the NGO. We do the whole risk assessment vetting process as well. So we run a technology also to reduce the transactional costs of the evaluating risk of the NGOs and also measuring what they are doing later. So nowadays we are running with 60 multinational companies such as Volkswagen, Unilever, Heineken, and others. And last year was around $100 million for over 460 NGOs all over Brazil, just in Brazil. So yeah, it's been a lot of work.
Well, on behalf of the NGO community, thank you
Yeah.
for channeling the funds the right way. What you do is so important because, as you know, as we were talking earlier, a lot of funding for nonprofits and all of that, it goes to people based on relationships. It goes to people based on, people who've already been established for a long time. They have a lot of, accreditation or they're trusted in a sense, which is great. I'm a big advocate for that. But it also causes a lot of, smaller, locally focused grassroots initiatives to lose out on these opportunities.
And create bias.
And
You know, I think like the
Yes.
main point is the relationship is one main key spot for trust. And we do have a trust issue and a trust challenge all over the NGO sector and the third sector. So when we gather data and tools to make this connection trustful, and we can kind of cut the bio of the relationship, and we can make it possible to putting the spotlight over the NGOs that are normally not seen. So I think that's one of the main goals that we try to do it.
And having an organization like you to do the reporting, the documentation, gives them a lot of credibility and accountability. So I guess my question is, for you, how was that accountability, credibility verged, or how did you answer that question as an entrepreneur? How did you get, maybe your first big funder or client to believe in you and actually use your services and platform? Because again, now in hindsight, it all seems very obvious, but you were
it's tricky.
Early 20s, new tech platform.
And then go to a company and say like, hey, look, this platform, everything that you're doing is wrong. You can do it in a new way. And then perfectly, like they get to us and say like, oh, so which other companies are doing that? And then we say like, oh, you can be the first one.
Yeah. How do you make that pitch? How do you get that first?
I think like for us at least, at the beginning we needed a lot of stamps. These stamps open doors. So we get a partnership with the main university that I was graduating at that point. I was not graduated yet. My conclusion work, my thesis was over this business model. And I used my university to opening the first doors and also to use mentors. They were so important for our history and everything that we are doing. We create a board member with people that we admire, that were connected with what we are doing, mainly with why we were doing that, because they felt the pain of the concentration of investments, and they knew the importance of democratize those investments and to make it more spread all over the country. So we keep together the university, these main people that has the trust already, and were board members for open the first doors. And after that was proving ourselves, like get the first client, do a great job, and then the things kind of happen naturally after, and still a challenge, still keep going. But after a while, you manage better and you get other stamps and the things that go easier. But yes, you have to figure it out for some ways at the beginning to get credibility, even more if this B2B market of big companies and big corporations in all over the country.
And there's always this element of governance, risk, and all of that, which I think at an early stage we understand, we take note of it, but it's not as important as when you grow and when you're in that growth stage. At least in my experience, there's so much more things that happen in a sense. Like when we first started, yes, we had like an awareness of, okay, we have to have permission forms, we have to have this, we have to have that, and things like that. But the nuances of it became so much more clearer after we've done it for a few years, after we started working with more students in a sense. And it seems that now, we have so much paperwork, so much this, so much that in a sense. Tell me a little bit about, the growing pains in your organization in a sense.
Oh, okay.
And what were some of the things that you saw along the way that became clearer as you worked on it?
Okay, great question. I think like has a lot of pains of it, over everything. Mostly we are creating a new market. It's like to run our platform, we had to have sometimes like some social responsibility experts. And also people that knows how to deal with data, how to deal with technology, how to deal with social investments. And we create this advisory team. So they were fundamental for the growth, but we don't have like advisory or social responsibility available everywhere. So we started to have to teach them and to create the thesis, because it's not a field with a lot of knowledge, is still a new field, so it's different of the financial market. As you said, like you said,
they've had crises in 1920.
And they also had to develop. They had like certifications, they had university, they have like a lot of courses, and the social responsibility needs the same professionalism. So it needs the same ways to use data, to gather better information, and to measure the return. It's not a financial return, but it's a social return of every of those investments. So one of the main challenges was how could we train more people? How could we deal with also governance. I think that governance became also, it of course, it
It's
became
a natural startup growing pain. Yeah.
it is a red tape process, and the things get more complicated. You're not as fast as you used to be to do changes. But for us, one of the main challenges was people. I think like every company is always about people and process. So if you get the process, it's difficult to people. If you get the people, it's difficult to process. So I think that we struggle sometimes, and we're still in this journey. I think like learning it's more in a spur, we sometimes get to the same point, but in the different level of maturity that we get to learn how to deal with people, process, and also to become more efficient at the end of the day.
Very, very good answer. And one of the things, when we started, it was 4 of us. We started the company, and we did everything in a sense. Now there's so many people doing so many things. I kind of lose count on everyone's like daily task and like what everyone's doing all the time. And one of the things that I think happens, naturally is that you can't, as you kind of grow the startup and grow the business, be able to kind of permeate the culture by yourself in a business. Because when you and 4 friends start a business, it's like, I tell you, you tell me. That's the culture in a sense. Like, you're not doing this right. I'm not happy with your tone of voice. You can fix the culture immediately by just talking to them. But when you have an organization in and of itself, the culture has to be something that's more systemic. It's got to be something that, is embedded, that people can learn and pick up with very quickly. How did you go about building the culture of the people in your organization, especially since it's still growing, it's still something that's moving?
And it's a life process, right?
Yes.
And I think like that's a tricky part, because the culture itself, it makes when you're not part of it, we always say like culture is when the founders are not in the office.
Yeah, what is everyone
what is
doing?
happening?
Yeah.
That's the real culture of the company. It's not, and of course this also came from a systemic process and everything. But I think that the main point is to get clear when you're hiring someone, and this is where like we started with no money at all, in a bootstrap process with no investments. So at the beginning, the people that wanted to be with us, they were really believing what we were doing.
I don't care if I'm getting paid.
We didn't have like a big salary, or it was difficult. So it was much more easy at that point, when after a while you get big and you have like good payments for everyone. Then sometimes you start to get people that are not really connected with what we were doing. So what we started to, and I think that was the most important, was always hiring some people, not just looking for the hard skills, but looking also for not the soft skills and what's the essence of those people. Are they believing in the same thing that you believe? Are they believing the same thing that you want to change? Because if this is not connected, then you're going to have a cultural problem. Other thing that is really important is to create the boundaries. What are the boundaries of your company, of your cultural pillars? Like how can you say like from this point to this point we can move, but after this limit we cannot cross, and then you have to be strict, because otherwise you lose.
It's a company. It's got to run.
Yeah, and you lose the essence of what you're doing. You lose the main point of it. You might grow, you might run, but you stop being a social organization and become just an organization. So I think that this is one of the challenges. How we grow, we have a business model, and we keep being a big corporation. We keep being a social organization with the things that we believe in our main decision making, not just the financial decision, because it's easier. Numbers is much easier than people. Money is much more easier than some indexes when we are talking about measuring impact that are completely new, and it's much more easy to deal with.
And it's always a balance. You always go like a little bit either way. Like I remember one of the first things, when we started going to that phase where, we were a lot more, we had to think a lot more about the process. It became everyone follow the SOP all the time, do it, things like that. Then we realized, but that's not our culture. That's not us. That's not the social impact. We want people to grow. We want people to learn. Yeah. And then we went the other way completely and said, okay, everyone do your own thing all the time. Be creative, be all of that. And then, as you said, we've had to kind of just figure out the boundaries that up until this space, you can try new things, you can do this, and you can be creative with how you're getting it done. When it comes to the crunch period, we've got to have a bit more boundaries and a bit more SOPs and a bit more processes.
And it's not just the business model, but I mean like the way the people treat each other, the way the people deal with the business, the way, because like we always try to have a culture of being a place and mostly being happier than I would be in anywhere else.
Yes.
Like if we are happy, if we believe in what we are doing, we're gonna get good results. That's what we believe. So it's important once that you start to seeing movements into the management way also that don't go after the ways that you believe of managing people, of the way that you believe of treating what's the main values of the company. It's important also to deal with it because you're going to cross with it. Now we have 55 employees now. It's not that big, but it's not that small anymore. So it started to be a different movement. I think until we were 15, 20 was a way to deal with the problems. 30 is something else. 100 probably is different. But 50, 60, it starts to have a really challenging management way because you're not that big that the problem doesn't get to you. And you're not that small that you can solve the problems. So the problems get to you and you cannot solve it. so it's a middle size that is a challenging way, but
that's a very good point. Very good way of saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're still learning. We don't have the answers for all your tricky questions.
No, I'm glad you shared that. There's a very, very nice way of looking at it, and you know, a lot of it is people, as you mentioned. You know, it's about who you are versus what you're doing, and all of that at times. For a lot of this audience out there who want to be social entrepreneurs, some of them are social entrepreneurs. They're trying it out in a sense. What do you think is the most important thing for them to learn, and how do they actually learn it? Because you have a lot of experience learning. You're in a business school. You're doing your own MBA now. You were an entrepreneur when you were young. You grew up kind of, in a way, building this beautiful organization. What do you think is the most important thing that, these aspiring social entrepreneurs need to know? How do they get that?
Okay. I think they have some learnings that we can share. One of them is listen ourselves. It sounds simple. Sounds something that I listen myself, but mainly we are guided to listen the others, not to listen ourselves. To listen, that feeling. Sometimes someone say that it's your voice inside your head. Sometimes they say that the energy. Some people relate with your heart. Some people relate with religion or something that guides you through. But everyone knows when they are feeling well, when they're, that small voices that says to you, even it's really important to get advices, but they are advices. At the end of the day, it's your own choices. At the end of the day, it's you that's gonna deal with the decision, and it's nothing worse to deal with a decision that is not yourself that made, and it's not a good decision. So I think that the most important part, and to learn all of this, is to learn ourselves, because at the end of the day, we are learning, we are dealing with all the problems, and it's an emotional roller coaster. To become an entrepreneur, it's an emotional roller coaster, and we have to have this feeling to deal with the down part, the up part, the looping part. So I think that we have this whole challenge of how can we listen ourselves, go through, because most of the time, even if it's not in the short term, but in the long term, I'm quite sure of it, that voice are always right. We know the answer, and sometimes we avoid and put effort to not listen to our voice, and at the end of the day, it has a cost normally when we don't listen this voice that we have. I think that this is an important advice.
I could not pick a better way to end it. Listen to that voice inside, but. Thank you so much. That was
it's a pleasure.
You have an amazing story, amazing experiences, and shared with us so many lessons that we can take back in a sense. So thank you for being on the show, and hopefully you had as much fun as our audience probably did listening to your story.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much, and thank you for watching and listening.
This has been Changing Reality. Thank you all, and see you all next time.
You're listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality. where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio.